in that very process. I pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
All right.
Are you sure we're not in Luke 5? Or did we go backwards?
We did the first several verses of Luke 5.
Okay.
Now we're going back to Luke 4 because we're trying to go through an order.
That's
Right? And so Luke, this gives me another occasion to comment on the fact that Luke, like many of his contemporaries, didn't care about chronology the way the modern mind does. It drives us crazy when people do things out of order, but they do it all the time. And which gospel, by the way, helps us the most chronologically as far as dating things?
John, actually.
John does. And John's the one that skips the most, but he's also the one that uses the most anacronyms. What's an anacronym?
NASA time marker. Time marker.
Anachronistic statements would be speaking as though something has happened and it hasn't happened yet. Like the one that comes to mind is he'll say, "This is the one who anointed Jesus' feet." And it's kind of like, well, that's several chapters later. That happens later in his ministry. It hasn't even happened yet. But he'll say that about this Mary to identify her. So he does that a bunch. It's just a reminder to me, they don't care about chronology the way we do. So we're going to be doing a lot of jumping around at different times. And tonight, in the Gospel of Luke, we need to go back because we just finished with, let me see, we just finished chapter 5. We made it through the first 11 verses. And after calling them, he said, "I'm going to make you fishers of men." I believe that's where we ended up last week. Okay, we're getting towards the end of the first year of ministry. And that's one of the things that sometimes it surprises us that, it seems like when you're reading some of the Gospels, again, because we look at things chronologically, it seems like he picks his disciples and starts his ministry. No. He meets some of them, but he doesn't call them, and they're not his disciples till, especially after that Judean ministry, and then going, I don't know if it's 10, it's right here. Judean ministry, and then going up to Galilee. He spends the better part of the first year in Galilee, and then he's on the lake and he calls some of the initial disciples, right? We're going to wrap up the first year here with a few more disciples being called, okay? Yes?
What constituted being a disciple? What was the qualifications?
Thank you. Disciple simply means a follower or a student.
All right, the apostles.
Apostles means you had to be a witness for the baptism of Jesus.
So these guys are fishermen up in Galilee.
Yep.
But they were down here in Judea when he was baptized.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Because John was baptizing he was on the other side. So Judea, technically, he was in Perea. Right.
So the guy that replaced Judas had to be there then.
That's exactly right. Matthias. He had to be from the very beginning. In fact, some of us, this is not a widely held belief, but some of us, I'm part of a group that thinks Saul was one of the antagonistic people dogging his path. And I think Saul saw the whole thing because he's an apostle as well. Right? He did have special training from Jesus, but nonetheless, that's part of the qualifications. Yes?
So when they were at the woman of the well, so they were just a group of guys following him from his baptism up, then, right? Because it says his disciples went in to buy food.
That's right.
Or they could have just been in that group, traveling back to work.
Because there were a lot of followers.
They were disciples and followers. Yes. But the call seems to be a little more special as far as, remember we left this off last week, that huge catch of fish.
Right.
And so they're probably able to pay all the bills and everything else, and then they leave it behind. Unlike some TV shows, they didn't sell everything. And we know that because later on, at the end of Jesus' ministry, they go back to fishing, right? But they definitely took a sabbatical. They left it aside. The father keeps the boats, and he's got other people, Zebedee has other people working the boats, right? Yeah. In the TV series, he gives that all up and he starts making olive oil or whatever.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's right.
Anyway, we're getting close to the end of the first year of ministry. In fact, we ought to be at the end of the first year of ministry before we're done tonight. But he just got through calling who are the first four that he calls?
Peter.
Two sets of brothers. Peter and Andrew.
James and John.
James and John. And we know from a previous discussion at the beginning of John, at least two of these guys were disciples of John the Baptist, which would explain why they were there when Jesus was being baptized, because they're disciples of John the Baptist. Now, who were the disciples of John the Baptist?
Andrew. Philip.
Well, the other one that we assume is John, because he doesn't name himself.
Oh, okay.
When he's talking about that in John, the first chapter.
Oh, okay.
And John never names himself. When he does want to make a reference to himself, he calls himself what?
The one he loved.
Yeah.
What does he say?
He says the one Jesus loved.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like saying,
favorite.
it's kind of like saying, yeah, the star student. No.
Jesus' favorite pupil. But I was his favorite.
Oh my. Okay. Anyway, that's where we left off. So now we're ready for verses 38 and following in chapter 4. This is where we're going to get to Simon's mother-in-law. So, Rick, if you'd start us off, let's have chapter 4, verse 38. Oh boy, 38 through 41.
Okay. Jesus left the synagogue and went to the home of Simon. Now Simon's mother-in-law was suffering from a high fever, and they asked Jesus to help her. So he bent over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. And she got up at once and began to wait on them.
Okay, stop there. Let's just have 38 and 39. Okay, two things jump out at me here. Number one, do you remember we were talking about this when we went through the book of Acts? The guy who was lame from birth, when Peter and John healed him, so often in the TV shows, and I'm sorry to pick on TV shows, I'm thankful that they do a good job with a lot of that stuff. I really am. But most of the healings, it's kind of like, oh, I think I can walk now and stuff like that. No. This guy, it says he went from couldn't walk, and he's in his 40s, right?
Yeah.
To jumping. Okay, so this is just my theory, but my theory is when he was healed, he got these great big muscles.
Yes.
It was like, wow. Okay. It was instantaneous. Okay, not only was that instantaneous, like when Jesus calms the sea, it uses words in the Greek language to say it went from a raging sea that scared these fishermen who were on it all the time. They thought they were going to die. Remember, don't you care that we die? And it went to not calm down, went to a sea of glass. We went to boom, right? Like, this can't be the sea. This has to be an inlet or something, because what happened to the waves? Right? They're just gone, right? Okay. This case, what does it say about the mother-in-law? When he heals her, what does she do?
Other ones, and we can't.
Yes, it's kind of like it's not like feel a little bit better in a day or two, I'll be back to work. No, it's kind of like,
Go.
yeah, show me where the pots are and stuff like that. So it's like total. So these are the kind of healings, of course, they're going to get people's attention. Yes.
Well, and this was always an argument against faith healers and stuff, because it never works that way with them. Those that claim to be healing people.
Yes.
And they're not permanent. Whereas what Jesus would do is, that's it.
Yes, I remember watching some of these documentaries where they followed some of these guys, and they'd interview people afterwards that said they got healed. And to a person, they'd say, well, I feel better. But as far as
actually being better.
Yeah. But I mean, there have been, the faith healers, that's one thing, but there have been documented, my own brother has documented he has medical records of cancer in his brain and his liver and his pancreas and his bones. It was everywhere. Now they can't find it anywhere. Just.
It has to be God.
Yeah. I would call that answer to prayer, and wow, what a healing it was. But but that's not like this. These are not just healings. These are miracles. And the definition of a miracle, the way it's used in the New Testament, is it's a sign, or I like to think of it as a spotlight. So it's not just a wow. In fact, let me get ahead of myself just a little bit. We're going to go to John chapter 5 after we do a little bit here in Luke. When we go there, it's the healing of a man who's been lame for 38 years, right? He's by a pool with a whole bunch of people. Jesus did not come in and heal a whole bunch of people. Just pick one. Well, to me, that speaks volumes. It speaks volumes that Jesus' number one ministry was not healing. I mean, if it was, he
waved his hand.
Yeah, and he could have done that. He could have gone and waved his hand and boom, everybody. Obviously, there's more going on here.
He would also have no time for anything else because they're going to love him.
Yes. Yes.
That's
That's exactly
anyway.
right. That's exactly right.
He had to get away from people.
Yeah.
Okay. Total healing, right? So it really does qualify as a miracle because this is the kind of stuff that if somebody gets better, it's kind of like, today the skeptics will be, you know what they say, doctors can heal you in 2 weeks, but if you don't go to the doctor, it takes about 14 days. And then you right. And there is a lot to that. Your body does heal itself. That's the way God made us and stuff, right? So skeptics would be, you would have got better anyway. Not these. These are the kind of miracles that are miracles, right? And so to me, that just, especially since we were just talking about the lame man and the book of Acts and everything, this jumps off the page at me because she immediately gets up and gives a weight on them. She's back to work. Boom, right? Okay, the other thing that jumps out at me is he's got a mother-in-law.
Yeah. He's married.
He's married. Why is that such a big deal?
Yeah. It's celibacy in your Catholic church.
Later on in church history. By the way, this is before Catholicism and the protesters, Protestant movement, before all that. In church history, there came a time when Christian people in general thought that it would be more spiritual not to get married. Right? There was a group in Jesus' day who thought that. Do you remember what the name of that group was?
The Puritans?
Essenes. The Essenes. They did not believe in marriage.
Well,
you know what happens to groups that don't believe in marriage?
They die out.
they die.
No kidding.
But Paul even says at some point, it's better to not marry.
Yes. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And that's probably where a lot of these people got that from. Because that's the only place. No, that's not true. There's 2 different places where it describes virtue to the idea of not being married. And that's one of the places. But Paul specifically says, because of the current crisis, I think it's better not to marry. But even in the current crisis, he says, if you're married, you haven't sinned. It's fine, right? So he makes a qualification. And so everybody's got the scratch in their head. I wonder what that current crisis was in Corinth at the time. But he very much localized it. But that's 1 Corinthians chapter 7. He says that. And he also says a lot of people can't do it. Right? So he says some people may want to be not married. And he says they need to get married.
Yes.
Because they're going to burn. Right? That's the word he uses.
Yeah.
In modern language, it means you can't control your hormones. So it's kind of like, okay, so you better get married, right? But he says the people, and Paul insinuates, like me. So some people think he never married. Some people think maybe his wife had already died. Right. There's a couple possibilities there. Nonetheless, we're back to Peter. Peter obviously was married if he has a mother-in-law. Paul's also going to make an argument in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. He says, why can't we do like the other apostles and have some of the benefits they have? And he comments about how they bring their wives along with them. So it's more than just Peter who's married, right? Okay. There's other passages talking about this.
Apostles not supposed to be married?
No. That's the point I'm trying to make. Doesn't make any difference whether you're married or not. In church history, however, this came out around the year 1000. Church history started to ascribe more virtue to not being married. Well, here's the problem with that. When they did that, I'm sure that some people were quite sincere. right? A lot of times it starts for a good reason. But when they started making it a rule, like you couldn't be a leader or a priest in the church if you were married, what happened was the illegitimacy problem, illegitimate births started to skyrocket. Why? Because people were burning, and yet they thought that they weren't allowed to marry, but so it created more problems.
Well, doesn't that go against what in Timothy, when they set out the rules for like the church, you have to be married.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of one woman.
Yes. Yes. As far as eldership is concerned, so that's 1 Timothy chapter 2. Over in chapter 4 it says, in later times, people will abandon the faith, teach deceiving doctrines, things taught by demons. And the first example he gives is they forbid people to marry. It's the first example. So if somebody chooses not to marry, and this is the other passage, Greg, it's not just 1 Corinthians 7. Jesus in Matthew 19 says that some people choose not to marry for the sake of the kingdom. Great. If you can do that, right? Some people make that kind of choice. But once you start telling other people you have to do that, say what?
I'd have a lot more stuff.
Well, a lot more time.
But once, it's the old problem. If we just stuck with God's rules, everything would be fine. And that's what the Jews, Jesus is really going to run into them on this Sabbath issue. And one of the things I want us to pay attention to is Jesus against the Sabbath, or is he just against the rules that the Jews in that day added to the Sabbath?
Yeah, the traditions.
Right, because what is the Sabbath? What's the Sabbath commandment?
Day to work.
Okay, what does that mean?
Rest.
Well, the Jews said it meant you're not allowed to take more than 1,200 steps.
Yep.
You're not allowed to tie a knot. You're not allowed to put out a fire. You're not allowed to heal somebody.
Yes.
Now, if they're going to die, you can prevent them from dying, but you're not allowed to heal them. They went ahead and specified all that. Did God say any of that in the Old Testament? No. You know,
A guy at our church over here at Ireland, he's a missionary over in Israel.
Yeah.
And he stayed with this Jewish lady over there, and she would not get up and turn the light off or on
Yes.
on the Sabbath.
Yes.
Yeah. She would sit in that dark until he got home, and he would turn them on.
Yes.
Or he would also turn them off.
And not just to pick on that, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but it's a great example. Back where I come from, up in the Midwest, there are a lot of groups that don't believe in automobiles and automation and things like that. Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But they will hire somebody to drive them around.
Yeah. Well, didn't the Jews do that?
You're not allowed to sit in the driver's seat, but you can buy the Cadillac and you can hire a driver.
That's in the Bible.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
If there was a fire, the Jews could have the Gentiles put it out for them.
You couldn't ask them to.
No.
But if a Gentile put it out, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's also that, with that group, you can't own power tools, but you can use them.
Can't own them, but can use them. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, to me, that's just another example. I mean, we could go down the Jewish. We could pick on churches. We could pick on the Amish. We could pick on a lot of different beliefs. But it usually boils down to man's trying to add to what God said. He's trying to better define it. And personally, I would say most of the time when people do that for themselves, it's for a good reason. I think the example I've told you before, I had a buddy who never watched TV when I went to school. Through most of the years, he didn't. Until he got real sick of cancer and died, he got a TV and put it in his room, watched it every day. But anyway, most of his life, he didn't watch TV. That's great. But if he ever told other people you're not allowed to watch TV, I think that'd be wrong. Right?
Yeah.
Even though there's not much good to TV. But nonetheless.
A little bit.
Taking those rules and applying it to somebody else. Yeah, okay. So, I just want to point that out. He has a mother-in-law. Okay, let's have verses 40 through 41.
43, what?
Verse 40
And 41.
and 41.
40, okay. When the sun was setting, all those who had any that were sick with various diseases brought them to him. He laid his hands on every one of them and healed them. And demons also came out of many, crying out, saying, You are the Christ, the Son of God. And he rebuked them, did not allow them to speak, for they knew that he was the Christ.
Okay. Again, I want to point out a couple things here. Why do the people come at sunset? That's a hint.
It's the end of the day.
So
Okay,
people
it's
need
the end
to
of the
see
day. It's not the end of the day, it's the start of the next day. In Jewish custom, the day starts at sunset. So what day are you not allowed to be healed on?
Sabbath.
Okay, so this is probably sunset Saturday. As soon as the sun goes down, now it's Sunday. So now they're allowed to come to Jesus, and in droves they're starting to come to Jesus. Sun goes down, so it's the start of a new day. Right. So what does that tell us about him healing Peter's mother-in-law?
On Sabbath.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. That's what
And then she got up and laid it on him.
She
This is really bad. Oh, boy.
She did. Okay, he's healing all these people and casting out the demons. Okay, before we talk about that for just a minute, that at the end of verse 41, where it says, would not allow them to speak because, the NIV says, because they knew he was the Messiah. Okay, some tenses in the Greek language are hard to translate into English, but a better translation would be because they had known that he was the Messiah. This is the imperfect. So it's not what I think the scripture is trying to convey is it's not that the demons could recognize Jesus when other people didn't. No, the news they'd already received the spiritual email from Satan. They knew already Messiah was here, even before they saw him. And then when they saw him, they recognized him. Okay, now, why wouldn't he allow them to tell everybody who he was?
Wasn't time yet.
Wasn't his time yet. That's a big one. Another reason.
Because he doesn't want the demons testifying who he was.
Yes.
It's already causing enough trouble.
Yes, did I tell you, I'm sure I told you my classic story about this when I first came back to Florida. One of the things that happened, I think it was in the Naples area, South Florida somewhere, but I think it was on that other coast. There was a guy who won the lottery, and he gave like $200,000 of it to the Salvation Army. Maybe it was more now. It's a huge amount of money. Salvation Army, when they realized it was from a guy whose lottery winnings, they gave the money back.
Wow.
Because they, with their ministry that they have with people, usually street ministry and things like that, they have seen such problems with people spending money on the lottery who can't afford it. They said it would be hypocritical of us to accept money from a lottery winner, so we can't accept it. I have disagreements with the Salvation Army, but I admire that. I think that was deserved a pat on the back, right? Because you stand up for your morals. Anyway, the same idea here. You don't want to. It's not just accepting money. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like, this has actually happened, by the way. If a strip joint came over and said, hey, we really appreciate the church what's doing here, we'd like to give you some money, we'd probably say, no thanks. we don't want, right? We don't want people on the, that's the church the strip joint built, right? Right? So things like that. And the credibility issue, as far as these are obviously demons. You don't want them being the one saying it, and not his time. I think that's exactly right. Put a premature end to his ministry. Okay, verses. By the way, if you've got comments, interrupt me, because I'm just going to keep on rambling. Right? Verses 42 through 44.
Early the next morning, Jesus went out to an isolated place. The crowd searched everywhere for him, and when they finally found him, they begged him not to leave them. But he replied, I must preach the good news of the kingdom of God in other towns too, because that is why I was sent. So he continued to travel around preaching in synagogues throughout Judea. Throughout Judea.
Yeah, good. No, that's good. Okay. Again, there are a couple things that kind of jump out at me here. He goes to a solitary place. Gospel of Mark we didn't turn over there because it's only one verse, talks about the same thing. But in 135, it says he went to a solitary place so he could pray. Jesus is frequently going to take time not just to get away from the crowds, it's going to take time so he can focus on his conversations with his Father. So, prayer time. The fact that this is, Luke mentions this at this place, at sunset, people are swamping him, and he's laying his hands on all of them, right? He doesn't always do that, but he does on this occasion. Then he withdraws. So it's kind of like, I think he's sending an important message. He's happy to help people, but that's not his main reason. And when asked, that's his response. He says, I've got to go to other places because that is my ministry. To let people know the kingdom of God. They need to know that it's at hand. The kingdom of God is here. So what does that mean? Well, we're going to find out more because Jesus is going to explain what the kingdom's all about in one of his first major sermons. Hasn't happened yet. We're almost done with into the first year of ministry. Right? Okay. In verse 44, it says he keeps on preaching in the synagogues of Judea.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Okay, thank you. What's the problem with that?
He's in Capernaum right now.
He's in Capernaum. Where's Capernaum? It's on the north side of the Sea of Galilee. It's right there. This is the area of Galilee.
Yeah.
Where's Judea?
Down.
Okay.
Oh,
Give me a definition for Israel. What does Israel mean?
Which one?
Okay, thank you. How many Israels are there?
5.
Yeah, can you name them?
Country.
Country?
Northern, when they split.
That's right. Sometimes it's the whole country. Sometimes it's just the northern country.
The actual man.
The actual man.
The Jewish people at one time.
Yes.
And then the Christians that have accepted Jesus Christ.
That's right. Galatians chapter 6. We are God's Israel. So it depends on how you use it. Just like Israel sometimes can refer to just the northern kingdom or the whole area, Judea, usually the New Testament only refers to the southern, but sometimes it can refer to the entire land of the Jews. Has to here. Because of where he is.
In the New King James, it says the synagogues of Galilee.
Okay, it's not God. He's in Galilee, but they changed it. Because the word is Judea, but they're interpreting it because Judea means, it would be like us saying, sometimes we really don't divide our country. I mean, we refer to the north and the south and stuff like that, but we don't have names for different sections. But if we were to say what?
Yankees.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, okay, that would be good. But if we would refer to it in a weird way, like the land where the Americans lived, that's kind of an unusual way, but we would get it, right? Well, usually when we're talking about the area of Judea, it will talk about the area of Judea. But when he uses it generically, you don't know. But it has to be generic. He doesn't say the land, he says in the synagogues of Judea, which, what does that mean? This area or the whole area? It has to mean the whole area.
So that's like saying the synagogues of Israel,
Yes. If we would have said Israel, we would have had the same problem. It would have been easier to take.
But when these were written, they were taken to all over Asia Minor.
Yes.
The Asia Minor would have said, where the Jews live.
Yes. You're exactly right. Because Luke in particular is more cosmopolitan. He's writing to Gentiles, right? Matthew is going to be a much more stickler on these kind of things because he's writing to a Jewish audience.
But the people that would be reading this in, say, Greece, would be going, over there with the Jewish
That
people
region.
Yeah, that whole area over there.
Yeah.
Like
this is
where the Yankees are.
That's a very good point. Because this is written, Luke is probably written in the 60s, somewhere around there. And so this happens, so this is like 30 years after it happened. And Christianity has already been spreading, like you say, to Asia Minor, which would be Turkey today. So yeah, and his audience really is a Gentile audience. Okay, we go from verse 44 chronologically to Luke chapter 5, verse 12. We jump over to verse 12. because the first 11 verses happened before this. That's why we read the first 11 verses before this. So let's go over to verse 12 and pick up reading, and let's just have verse 12. Luke, we're still in Luke.
While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean."
Yes. Okay, a couple things here. Number one, tell me about the leprosy. What is leprosy? It is a skin disease. And by the way, in biblical times, it was a broad term. Referred to a lot of different stuff. If we talk about leprosy today, did you realize that one of the few cases of leprosy in the modern world happened in Florida?
Yeah.
You know where? Mims.
Mims.
Close. Yeah. You know why?
Armadillo.
Armadillos. That's exactly right. They're carriers.
Exactly.
Somebody in Mims was working on their truck, laying on the ground underneath where the armadillos were, I guess.
Or they ate them.
Or they ate
I can believe
Right?
that.
Sorry.
Actually, it's on the outside shell.
Oh, okay.
If you clean it without getting the outside shell on you, you won't get it. You can eat the meat.
I guess
Well, he didn't know better, so he just
Is this a voice of experience?
You can eat the meat, but you just don't
Gotcha.
touch the outer shell.
Okay.
It's kind of like eating
Like
a lionfish. You can eat the lionfish, but you gotta clean it.
He
right.
just forgot to put gloves on when he's touching the shell.
It's like
Okay. Back to the study.
Yeah.
Leprosy, though, one of the important things to remember with a lot of diseases, but especially leprosy, the attitude of people in Jesus' day was, you're sick because you deserve it. Mm-hmm. You're a bad person, that's why you're sick. So when this guy comes up to him and asks for a healing, he doesn't just ask for a healing, he falls with his face to the ground and begged him, if you're willing, somebody like me, somebody who doesn't deserve it, have mercy on me, kind of thing. Makes you think of Peter falling on his knees saying, Lord, I'm a sinful man, right? Realizing that in the presence of Jesus. Anyway, so he asked for that. And Jesus is going to, it's interesting the way Jesus heals him. Let's have verses 13 through 14. 13 and 14.
Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him.
Yes.
Then Jesus ordered him, don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them.
Okay. Three things here. Number one, what did Jesus do when he said, I'm willing? He
Touched him.
What's the problem with that?
You're unclean.
He's not allowed to touch somebody
Yeah.
with leprosy. Okay, so here's the where people talk about how many angels can stand on the head of a pin. Did he still have leprosy when he touched him? Because his touching him got rid of the leprosy. So was the leprosy still there? So did Jesus really touch a leper? Or as he touched him, was he a healed man? Doesn't make any difference because Jesus can do whatever he wants.
It's that chronological problem again.
But he touched him, he's healed, and because of what happened with Peter's mother-in-law, again, he was immediately the leprosy left him. So it's not like, I'm starting to get better, I feel a little bit better. No, poof. Right? So it's an immediate healing. Jesus touches it, which by the way, you're not supposed to do that. Jesus is all the time happy to break rules that shouldn't have been there in the first place, right? But when he touches him, why would he do that? Not just to break a rule.
Well,
Show his authority and power.
Authority, power,
Personal.
very, they did studies years ago. I don't know if this is true anymore, but back before the year 2000, they did some studies in libraries where they would pay librarians to be part of the study, and when people would check out books, I guess back when we used to have libraries. Anyway, when people check out books and stuff like that, they would purposefully, in handing the book, ask the librarian to make sure you touch it. And then they'd interview the people afterwards, and almost to a person, they had a better impression of the librarian when they touched him versus when they didn't. And one of the points that psychologists were trying to make is there is a huge, huge thing with the human touch. When you meet people and you never touch them, they won't shake hands or anything, whether you think intellectually less of them or not, it has made a difference to you psychologically. So there is something to touching people. And some of us, I know I'm a weird person, everybody's got their idiosyncrasies, but I grew up around people who didn't just shake your hand. When they talk to you, they're all the time rubbing your shoulder and stuff like that when they're talking to you.
That's my broken one.
Oh, sorry. My problem is with my boys are big boys, and so my problem with them is I can't just touch them. I always pound them. It's kind of like, I mean nothing by it. They're love pats. You know what I mean? But I feel a closeness to them, and so touching it. But there's something to that. I just don't want us to blow by that because I think there's something significant to it. We're going to see this later when Jesus deals with the blind and when he deals with the deaf and the mutes. He's going to put his fingers, he's going to touch them. Anyway, there's significant. It's significant, not just some other humans touching you. This is somebody, he's falling on his face because he realizes how unworthy he is. And he comes over and touches him. It's huge, it's huge. Okay, the other thing though is he says, don't tell anybody. Why does he say that? Not his time. Bring a premature end to his ministry. We're coming up to the end of the first year, but we still have two and a half years left of ministry. But he does say, go back and show them and keep the law, just like Moses prescribed. So this is not the traditions, this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah. But he says you do that as a testimony to them. Yeah. Okay. If he says don't tell anybody, but I do want a testimony there, how do you balance that out?
Well, he's just going to talk to the priest, number one.
Okay, he's just going to talk to the priest. And you know what? Later on in the book of Acts, we're going to find out a lot of priests are becoming Christians. Well, maybe some of this, just like a lot of the things that he tells his apostles, his disciples, they don't get it till later. Yeah. This is going to be information. And they're going to be like, yeah, I was there that day. This guy, we knew he had leprosy. He's nothing. Right? So it's going to be data. It's going to be information that's going to be part of the witness that people are going to be able to connect the dots later.
I thought in reverse psychology. You tell people not to do something, they're going to do it. Yes. Yes.
I'm pretty convinced, though, that Jesus really didn't want them to tell him first, but yeah. They did.
A question.
Yes.
Maybe I'm confused. Wasn't there a time where he healed 10 and only one came back?
Samaritans.
So this is a different.
It's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just thought it was told at a different viewpoint.
No, this one's different.
Okay. Thank you.
There are times though, like blind Bartimaeus, we find out that there's another blind guy there. In Matthew, it doesn't focus on the other guy at all, right?
Yes.
So sometimes we do find that. Okay, let's keep going. Maybe we're not going to make it to John tonight. Verses 15 and 16.
Where is this? Where are you at?
We're still in Luke 5.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yet the news of Adam spread all the more. So that's reverse psychology.
Yeah.
So the crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed.
Okay. I would just reiterate, this is emphasizing that's not his number one ministry. And I think that's important to get because there are some people today that think that the number one thing Jesus wants for you is for you to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. No, I think he wants something much more important. And I think sometimes you not being healthy and not having all you want might be better spiritually for you. Because being right with God is the most important thing. Yeah.
Hey, where do I get this wise part?
Yeah. You've got it already. All right. Verses 17, let's have 17 through 19.
One day Jesus was teaching, and the Pharisees and teachers of the law were sitting there. They had come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was with Jesus to heal the sick. Some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a mat and tried to take him into the house to lay before Jesus. When they could not find a way to do this because of the crowd, they went up on the roof and lowered him on his mat through the tiles into the middle of the crowd, right in front of Jesus.
Very good. Okay, I'm used to this in Mark chapter 2, but we're staying in Luke just to be a little more consistent. But same story. We do get a couple of important details in Luke, such as Pharisees are here. And that's an important detail because what we're going to find out later. Okay, we're well acquainted with this story. It's in Capernaum. Four friends of this lame guy come carrying him on this cot, mat, whatever you want to call it. They can't get in because of the crowds. Okay, some people have theorized that there must have been a staircase on the outside of the house. How they could have gotten up on the roof. Commentary I read earlier today said that would be extremely unusual for homes built at this time to have a stairway on the house. Because why would you put a stairway on the outside of the house? That would be asking robbers to come and climb up on your house. Because a lot of times they stored things up on the roof. Usually they got to the roof from the inside of the house. So, if you've ever watched Tom Cruise, you know he goes to the building next to the building. And he goes up on the roof and he jumps across roofs. Okay, the homes would be close enough. They probably, because of the crowds, had to go 1, 2, 3 houses down the stretch. And whenever they could get in a house, they probably went to the roof of that one and then passed the man over until they got to the roof of where Jesus was teaching. Okay, breaking through the roof. Most of the roofs were flat roofs. They were thatched. They had mud and all sorts of stuff mixed in with it. So as they were breaking through, the mud and the thatch would be over tiles sometimes. But all of that, it's going to be noticeable if you're in the room that somebody's breaking in.
My question,
Yeah.
okay, if the gentleman was paralyzed,
Yes.
that was typically of that time period, that it was something he had done.
Yes.
How would he have had 3 friends?
If they all this.
3 Jewish friends that would have thought, well, he deserves this.
Very good. Very good. That's a great question because a lot of people had a lot of illnesses, but there was a big distinction between the haves and the have-nots. And the people, the upper crust people, the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, they would really look down on these people. And a lot of times they referred to them as the sinners. And they would reinforce those thoughts because bad things happen to these people. I mean, they're poor. Come on, they're sinners. But a lot of the people in that class would be gracious to one another because we're all in the same boat.
Okay.
So this guy's going to get in trouble forecasting ahead for picking up his mat and walking. Why? Because it's Sabbath. Well, how did he get there?
It was scary.
On the mat, people were carrying. Well, these guys were breaking the Sabbath law by doing this. So they're sinners too, as far as Pharisees are concerned. Right? So, no, that's an excellent question. I'm glad we're piecing all this together. So anyway,
First reaction.
This is one of my favorite stories in the first year of ministry because of the way this develops. It makes a powerful point. Verses 20 and 21. Don,
Oh,
yeah, thanks.
it's a Catholic church Bible, so be careful.
We'll take it.
On receiving their faith, Jesus said, "Friend, your sins are forgiven you." Then the scribes and the Pharisees began to ask each other, "Who is this man uttering blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Okay,
Great. The guy's lame. And the first thing Jesus says, your sins are forgiven. Okay, is he endorsing the thought that everybody was thinking in the first place?
No.
Probably not. but he's probably dealing, in fact, we know he's not, because in John chapter 9, he makes the point when somebody asks about a blind person, is it their sin or somebody else's sin? He says, nobody's sin. So he's really clear on the fact that sometimes illness has nothing to do with our sin. But he is clear on the fact that sometimes illness is related to our sin. All that has nothing to do with what's going on here, because he's going to heal the man in a minute. But the first thing he does is he forgives his sin, because that's more important. I think that explains why he didn't heal everybody everywhere, because there's something more important than just a physical healing. This is a great example of it. This is what he really needs. He needs his sins forgiven.
Isn't this also, considering the audience,
Yes.
it's an opportunity for him?
It is.
You know, they think just the opposite of this kid. You know, these
They
sinners, they're doing all these bad things and stuff. So what does Jesus do? He goes ahead and forgives them right there on this.
Yes. So he forgives them, and here's the problem. They are really upset because only God's allowed to forgive sins.
Right.
And it's kind of like they're afraid everybody's going to believe it. But how can you tell if somebody's sins are forgiven? That's something you can't look at with your eyes and say, oh, the sins fell off. They're no longer.
Yeah.
No, you can't see sins.
Right.
So how do you know these really forgiven?
Because you two together, because if you were sick because you sinned and your sins been forgiven, then you wouldn't be sick anymore.
Yes. Yeah, no, okay, that's a very good point. But notice what Jesus is going to do with this. I love this. Verses 22, Rick, we're back over to you. Verses 22 through 26.
Okay. Jesus knew what they were thinking and asked, why are you thinking these things in your hearts? Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up and walk? But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. So he said to the paralyzed man, I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home. Immediately he stood up in front of them, took what he had been lying on, and went home praising God. Everyone was amazed and gave praise to God. They were filled with awe and said, we have seen remarkable things today.
I love this. Okay, notice how he connects the dots. You can't tell if I forgave sins or not because you can't see it, right? But I'm going to do something that you can see in order that you may know I was able to do what you could not see. So I'm going to do something visible here that no normal person can do. It's going to heal him, which proves what I said before I was able to do. And the people believed it because they were amazed and praised. Everyone was amazed and praised God, filled with awe. Well, everyone includes some Pharisees here. Sometimes even the Pharisees were like, in fact, we know one Pharisee named Nicodemus. Pretty convinced. We know you have to be from God. Nobody could do the things you do if you're not from God, right? So these guys are connecting us because what it proves is not just that he's able to forgive sins. Forgiving sins means he's God. Okay, I need to correct myself because when I said picking up his mat, that's the next story we're going to go to. The guy gets in trouble for picking up his mat. So this one may not have been on the Sabbath. So I need to correct myself here real quick before I forget it. That's the next story we're going to go to in John chapter 5. Okay, let's have verses. Any other comments? That's such a powerful story.
It is.
Let's take verses 27 and 28. 27, 28.
After these things, he went out and saw a tax collector named Levi sitting at the tax office, and he said to him, follow me. So he left all, rose up, and followed him.
Okay. This sounds kind of like the fisherman leaving the nets behind. It's time to follow, right? We know this Levi by another name. Matthew. Yeah. Okay. When he left everything, when they left the boats and the nets, that's one thing. But when he left everything and followed, what is he leaving?
Wealth.
You were considered a traitor if you got involved in being a tax collector because you had to work for Rome. And I think the Chosen actually does a pretty good job of this because you had to have Roman support to be able to be a tax collector. Otherwise, they take you out of town and do something bad to you. Right? Nobody's bad for these taxes. Okay, but with Roman protection, you were allowed to extract as much money as you could from the people, and you only had to turn into Rome what Rome required, and you kept the rest. Right. And most tax collectors did. Yeah, boy, and here's the deal. It wasn't considered embezzlement because you were actually protected by the government and allowed to do it, right? So that's why it was considered treason by the Jews, right? Yeah. Okay, so he leaves everything. What's he going to do next? Verses 29 through 32. 29 through 32.
Later, Levi held a banquet in his home with Jesus as a guest of honor. Many of Levi's fellow tax collectors and other guests also ate with them. But the Pharisees and their teachers of religious law complained bitterly to Jesus' disciples. "Why do you eat and drink with such scum?"
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Good translation.
Where is that from?
Mine just says tax collectors and sinners. I like scum. Rebel scum.
Catholics don't know that.
What it says in mine. Jesus answered them, "Healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners and need to repent."
Okay, I really like your translation of verse 31. Because,
Yes.
yeah, because I've come to the sinners. Obviously, they're all sinners,
Right.
but not everybody realizes it. So I like that interpretation, translation of that last verse there. Okay, the eating, the reason it bothered them that they're eating with the scum.
Yeah.
Great translation. Because eating with people in Jesus' day, we talked about this before, right?
Like an
It was
endorsement.
huge. It was an endorsement. It's kind of like saying, association. It's like a family member, right? To me, seems to me most Americans, if there's a seat open, I'm going to sit there. If it's good food, I don't care who's sitting in the restaurant with me, right? Jews would never do that. They would never do that. So the association was really big, and they're complaining about it. The other point I wanted to make is Ben Merrill years ago pointed out, again, the church growth people do these studies all the time, but they find out that the people who bring the most people to church are the people who most recently have come to church themselves.
Right.
The people who are very much involved in church, the longer you've been involved in church, the less likely you are to bring other people. And his point was, one of the main reasons for that is because now your sphere of influence is pretty much other people in the church. You just don't have as many contacts outside the church as you used to. But when you first became a Christian, most of the people you knew weren't going to church. Well, this is a great example of that. What does he do? First thing he wants to do is, hey, I want everybody that I work with, the few friends that I have, I want them to know what I found. Mm-hmm. It's a great thing. Yeah.
Well, and I also, that's okay. You want to go ahead?
Another way to think about it is, if you are new to the church, your experiences have more credibility with people outside of the church. If you've been in the church a while,
you're one of those church people.
You're a church person. There's an expectation.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah, I didn't think of it, that side of it. I was just thinking from looking at it inside the church, but looking at it from the world's perspective, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, great.
Well, I was going to say, too, the fact is that likely there's changes happening. I go forward to the story of Zacchaeus, because he repents. He starts talking about, hey, I'm not going to extort anymore, and I'm not going to. So these tax collectors, I assume they're coming listening to Jesus.
Yes.
Hopefully, some of them are making changes. Hey, I'm not going to do this thing.
They probably make them stand in the back row or climb up a tree to be able to listen to him or whatever, because they're despised by the other Jews. But yeah, he's having an impact. We're gonna see. What was it, a couple weeks ago? We were in John chapter 4 when he goes through Sychar, and this is the first place where he actually comes out and tells them he's the Messiah, right? In Samaria. Well, we read about that. We don't read much else about that until we get to the book of Acts. The book of Acts in chapter 8, they go up there, huge response to Christianity. Well, they're primed, right? So that's what I kind of take what you said. People are primed maybe because of Levi, some of the influence he has had on his fellow tax collectors. Okay, that's such an important verse, what Jesus says there, though. not just to them at that time, today. People are not going to come to the Lord if they don't think they need to come to the Lord.
That's right.
You got to realize you have a problem first. That's one of the reasons. This is going to sound bad, but I'm going to say it to you guys. I'm okay with people being depressed and having all sorts of problems. You need to have problems sometimes to realize you don't have answers. And when you realize you don't have answers, maybe you'll look.
Well, that's the age-old argument, but sometimes you have to hit rock bottom.
Yes. Yes,
And you don't realize you've hit rock bottom until something really bad happens to you.
Yes.
And then you realize, I can't do this on my own, I need help.
Yes. And the people that I'm talking to at the gym, you know, that's my limited sphere outside the church. A lot of them, they're not hitting rock bottom. They're not having problems. So I think it's my job to ask them questions about, you know, how's your life really working for you? Yeah, how satisfied are you? You know, that really make you happy? Because I want them to feel bad. Right? I want to, you know what I mean by that. I really love them and I want them to be right with God. And I don't think they're going to be right with God until they realize I need God. And as long as they're just coasting along, having fun in life, I don't think they're going to be looking for God. Right? Sometimes you need something to slap you in the face. And if it's not a tragedy, maybe it's somebody's piercing questions that you can't get out of your head or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, I think that's why the devil doesn't have to work so hard in this society. Because we're so complacent and so satisfied with everything going on. We don't have a lot of persecution. And
I will totally agree with what you just said. And then I will add, I think he is working a lot because we've come to a place we can't tell the difference between a boy and a girl. I mean, we've advanced so much, we're stupid. And I'm like, how did we get here? You know, if you would have said this 25 years ago, people would have said, ha, 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 ha. Never happened. It's happening. I think it's directly attributed to the fact that we don't have a godly standard. And anything goes. Okay, I'm sorry. I got off track here. Let me see. Verses 33 through 35. 33 through 35.
It said to him, John's disciples often fast and pray, so do the disciples of the Pharisees. But you're going on eating and drinking. Jesus answered them, can you make the guests of the bridegroom fast while he is with them? But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them. In those days, they will fast.
Okay, we're going to stop here. I've got a couple comments to make. We'll finish, because Jesus, I don't want to slight his answer. He gives a great answer here that's very important to get. And after we finish chapter 5, we're going to John chapter 5. Okay? Who is this? Well, according to Matthew, it's John's disciples who are the ones who are asking this question. And John's disciples are like, hey, John taught us to fast. Pharisees fast. You guys don't fast. It makes you wonder, are they like jealous? You know? Or maybe it's just a sincere question. I don't want to read too much into this. So it begs the question, what's the purpose of fasting? Why should people fast? Should people fast?
Yeah.
Let's all shake our heads. Yeah. How do we know that? Because Jesus does talk about fasting. He's going to briefly touch on it here. He really doesn't get into fasting. But in the Sermon on the Mount, he's going to talk about when you fast. He assumes there's going to be times of fasting. He makes that assumption here, too. But what's the purpose of fasting?
One is closer to God. I mean, you can focus on your spiritual relationship with God, but that's not the only thing.
Because many times prayer and fasting are
God's sitting next to them.
Say what?
God is sitting next to them.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. That's the reason they don't fast right now. It's kind of like, I love this example because if you get invited to a wedding, I don't care if you're on a diet or not, and it's your day not to eat. If it's your brother or cousin and it's their big day and they're cutting a cake and everything else, and you say, well, no, you know, I'm fasting. You're going to, that's stupid. Don't do that, right? Of all the bad things to do, break your diet that day because it's not called for. Now, if somebody just died and you're visiting at a house where everybody's just in shock because they didn't expect it, and the cloud of mourning is rested on these folks, and they're just bitter, you better not come in and say, hey, let's order a pizza. Yeah. Of all the stupid things to say, right? There's a time and a place for different things. I think that's Jesus' answer here. There's a time and a place for this. And I don't think he's just saying out there in the future. I think he's saying even as apostles, we're not fasting right now. 2.5 years, we're going to do some heavy-duty fasting. Probably 3 days Jesus in the grave, they probably didn't eat. This is another thing that we observe when you talk about fasting, like David fasted in the Old Testament, when his child was sick. There are certain times you fast because you don't stop and think about eating. It's the period of life. It's what you're going through. So there's natural occasions. I wanted to add, though, it's often referred to as a spiritual discipline. I like that. I think, I've been swayed by this, that it's good to practice fasting for a couple different reasons. Sometimes it's just appropriate for prayer and devotion, set aside time. I'm not going to do anything else. It's kind of like Jesus saying, my food is to do the will of the Father. So I'm going to get that out of the way so I can focus more on God. But I also think it's important because one of the fruit of the Spirit, one of the dimensions of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. And sometimes we don't have self-control. And if you can't tell yourself, and I know there's medical reasons and other things associated with fasting with food, but just in general, if you can't, I'm going to skip this next meal. If you're the kind of person who you fall apart and you can't think about anything until I can eat, it's kind of like you've got no self-control. And what's going to happen when that woman walks by you and doesn't have all the clothes on she should have? You're not going to have the self-control to look away. You're not going to have self-control when somebody at the cash register gives you more money than you paid. They accidentally gave you the wrong money in response, and you're going through a difficult time. You're not going to have the self-control to say, hey, I don't deserve. You're not going to have self-control in the other areas of your life, right? I think there are certain things, and fasting's one of them, that helps us just develop self-control. What I mean by that is, I know the right thing to do. This is what I'm going to do, so I'm going to do it. Well, that's kind of what fasting.
I had a hard time with homemade vanilla ice cream.
Okay.
My willpower is very weak when it comes to
years ago, when I was doing fasting on a more frequent basis, I started, because I was going to do a week-long fast. I didn't make it through to the second day. I made it one day. And it so crushed my spirit because I thought, I can do better than that. And I couldn't do better than that. I had to build up to it. It took me a long time to be able to get past one day of fasting, which was a reality check for me, because I thought I was a person of great self-control. Yeah, just try going another day without eating. Do it again, right? So anyway, that's fasting, but in this case, you're exactly right. There's a time for it and a reason for it. Sometimes it's for mourning, sometimes it's for praying, getting closer to God. Sometimes it's just to develop self-control, right? All these would be good reasons. It's not a good reason so that you can brag to people, right? It's kind of like go to your closet to pray. We'll talk about that later when Jesus talks. It doesn't mean you have to pray in the closet, but it does mean you shouldn't be bragging about your prayers, right?
Yeah, no showboating.
No showboating. That's a good way to put it. Okay, I've talked too long and I've taken